Hello and welcome to the Lift Up Journeys podcast. My name is Katy and I am one of the founding members of Lift Up Women in Life Sciences, a community created to connect, champion and inspire women from academia through to C-suite across the life sciences industry. I'm looking forward to sharing with you an inspiring collection of career stories from a group of wonderful women who work in leadership positions across the life sciences industry. I hope by listening to these stories, you will feel inspired in your own career and gain the skills, confidence, and knowledge you need to climb the career ladder and break through the glass ceiling. Hello, and welcome back to another episode of the Lift Up Journeys podcast. Today, I'm joined by the wonderful Aziza Johnson. As an introduction to Aziza, she is a regulatory and development executive who's been delivering on startup and global companies' missions to support patients through groundbreaking new drugs for over 25 years. She's the global head of regulatory and patient safety at Recordati Rare Diseases, a role in which she drives global regulatory affairs, pharmacovigilance, scientific affairs, drug development programs, and talent strategies. Aziza has led numerous clinical development projects from phase 1 through to phase 4 studies in many therapeutic areas. Viewing drug development through the lens of a regulatory affairs background, she's provided full regulatory strategies for approvals by the FDA, EMA, MHRA, Chinese FDA, and Health Canada. Approvals included those for new products, product presentations, and product strengths. Aziza is passionate about supporting talent and diversity in the workplace. She's a member of various groups that support women in the workplace in Switzerland, and as a mother to 2 teenage daughters, she's a true champion for empowering women and wanting to create a more equal environment for all females and helping males to appreciate the talent amongst them. She sits on the board of an NGO in Switzerland that also supports women in the workplace too. So a fantastic introduction, Aziza, I must say. How does it feel hearing your sort of career in a summary like that?
Well, firstly, thank you very much for inviting me to participate in this program, Katy. I really, really do appreciate it. And yeah, when in a nutshell, when you hear these things, you go, wow, is that really me?
Yeah.
Because we don't tend to put this to paper and read about ourselves too often, right? We just get on day to day, living our life, doing our jobs. And so it's always very interesting to hear some of these things come back and go, oh, that's kind of interesting. Is that really me?
Yeah.
Did I really do that? But yes, I'm very proud and grateful that I've had the opportunity to tap into some of these things throughout my career and hopefully continue to, shine a light on women and men as well in the workplace. This talent and diversity to get to where we need to be. But first, ultimately for my girls as well, I want them to see that women can work and they can do well and they can have successful careers and things like that.
Absolutely. And your own career, Aziza, is definitely one that I'm sure will inspire not just your daughters, but plenty of other people who work in our industry too. Would love to take a little bit of a deep dive into maybe where your career started would be a great point. So tell us a little bit about what the younger you was like. What did you enjoy when you were going to school? Was there a love of science always there for you? Or
So I could start really, really early on when I was in primary school, and I've always been a very curious person. Even I think probably my mum would even laugh and say my first words were why, not my dad, to the point where always asking questions and trying to find answers, even in primary school, So sometimes, and it sounds a little bit petulant and a bit naughty for a child to do this, but I'd be like, well, why do I need to do the work now? I'll come in and I'll get it done, but when I'm ready, and those kind of
yeah,
things. And that kind of curiosity has consistently grown, I would say.
yeah,
As I've gotten older, learnt more things, seen more topics. And so, you go through the normal stages of growing up. I grew up in the UK, in Manchester, so in the north of England. And I grew up in the 70s and 80s. And so my primary and early years in school were a little bit different, I would say. I went to Catholic school. So we were the only brown children in the school, my sister and myself. So you're dealing with that side of things, as well as learning about yourself, education, what you want to do. So I think when you look back, you do realize some different challenges you overcome.
Yeah.
But then science is something I've liked quite early on. It's something that made sense to me because you could ask a question and you could find an answer that was kind of logical, right?
Yeah.
So that's how my brain functions. So eventually went on to do A levels, physics, chemistry, maths, so pretty scientific race,
Yeah.
with the idea of maybe wanting to pursue medicine or something along those lines. Now that won't be a surprise to any Asian people who are on this call, typical standard response. Yep, I'm going to be a doctor when I grow up. And then I had some powerful advice, and this was the first time listening to somebody give you advice on what might make sense for you. And that was when I was doing my A levels. One of the teachers, the career advisors, was like, "Yeah, well, Aziza, you're female, you're Indian, medicine is a very white male dominated profession, you're very curious, you're a very determined person, you want to go places. Is this really the right path for you?"
Oh, wow.
And then she gave me other options. She said, you could do this, I think it was like biochemistry, pharmacology. And then we talked a lot about pharmacy and the kind of doors that could open. So that naturally went on to going to university open days, seeing what was what, and speaking to people. And that's how my journey started into the world of pharmacy. Really stepping in from that advice I was given back when I was 18 years old.
Wow.
So, I'm lucky and fortunate that I went to ask questions. Again, curiosity.
Yeah.
Didn't kill the cat, it helped the cat this time. And, then I went on to university to study pharmacy,
Yep.
which was in London, so the London School of Pharmacy. So again, moving from Manchester to the south.
Yeah. How was that?
Different, but pharmacy school was really nice. It was a small school.
Yep.
It wasn't like these huge universities,
Yeah.
and it was kind of semi on campus, semi not. It's like the City of London is the campus essentially, but there was a great bunch of people, some amazing friends that I still have today. So
Oh.
many years on, still people I am very much in touch with, and they're all doing amazingly well in different areas of pharmacy. So again, this kind of showed me, or has shown me, what my teacher was telling me about when I was 18 was kind of true. There are many different doors that open to you out of getting that
Yeah.
degree.
Totally. And a lot of that is probably attributed to your curiosity as well, of not just saying, right, this is the one avenue that most people go down having studied pharmacy. It's maybe you already thinking, well, what else could I do with this knowledge that I've gained? So I love the fact that you've taken that advice on board, and it's definitely helped you kind of land on your feet a little bit in that sector. In terms of studying when you were at university, what was it like going into university studying something like pharmacy?
It was hard, right?
Yeah.
So we would be in halls of residence, and we'd be the only ones who'd be going to class from 9 a.m. to
True.
5:30.
Yeah.
So you would see other kids um, who would be sitting in the common room
Yeah.
on in the afternoon, and you'd be like, lucky things kind of
Yeah.
thing. Wednesday afternoon was a dedicated for sports kind of thing. I wasn't very sporty at that time, I have to say. I think my sporting instincts have come in my latter years.
Yeah.
I have probably more since I married my husband. But at that time, I went on and went, well, you know what? I didn't get an A level in biology, so I'm going to go and study biology now. And so I was doing those kind of things on a Wednesday afternoon versus, mixing with people and doing the sports things, which in hindsight probably wasn't the right thing, because you're also meant to be socially connecting with people as well at university. It's not all about the academics.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah.
but
True.
hindsight's wonderful.
Oh, of course. Of course. And talk us through, you obviously studying pharmacy in London. What came next from there for you?
So, pharmacy school, you have to do something called a pre-registration year,
Hmm.
and that can be in any walk, the three main parts. So, industrial pharmacy, hospital pharmacy, or community pharmacy. So, they were the options that you would get your pre-registration setting. And again, this is where curiosity comes in. So, I'm looking around going, okay, what suits me? for me, community pharmacy wasn't quite really where I saw myself. Hospital, yeah, I could have done. And then industry was what I liked, because when I was doing lectures, the pharmaceutics lectures, I really enjoyed how are these products made and what can you do that's new. Also, pharmacology, how's it working in the body? So those are the things that piqued my interest more. So it's like, okay, what can I do here? I had an amazing mentor at university,
Wow.
Professor Craig. And so I would chat to him and he'd be like, well, industry, but it's hard to get into. So at the time, I believe there were only around 17 placements in the United Kingdom.
Wow.
And there's quite a lot of pharmacy schools in the UK. So it was, competition, but then, okay, let's give it a go.
Yep.
Fighting to get your place. So put in a lot of applications, a lot of rejections, but eventually I was successful to secure a place with Baxter.
Oh, wow.
And and that's what really, got my foot in the door, I would say, into understanding industry pharmacy and what that means. And then actually that gave me my first taste of regulatory affairs too. So very early on, I got a little taster of what reg affairs was and kind of really loved it. Very early on, I was like, that's where I want to go. And then
Wow.
I did some other steps to help me get there.
Yeah, of course, of course. Wow. Okay. So that was the journey into industry for you then. So Baxter was the first opportunity for you to kind of go into industry, see what it was all about. Obviously, Baxter, quite a well-known name, especially here in the
Yeah.
UK. What was it like for you going into quite an established, large organization like that?
It was really, really, I was scared, right? So you're going in. I mean, you can't tell from me sitting down, but I'm tiny. I'm like 1.52 meters,
Yep.
right? So I'm tiny. I'm about 5 foot. So it's a tiny little Indian lady
Yep.
walking into these big manufacturing plants. And Baxter's program was actually based out in Thetford in Norfolk at the time.
Oh, okay.
So
Yep.
if you imagine a Indian 20-year-old walking into this manufacturing site in the middle of Thetford, where most people haven't really left the county.
Yep.
You can imagine the
Yep.
kind of reception, the looks you're getting as well, and then the enormity of it. So they were like, okay, so this is marketing, and this is QA, and this is regulatory, and this, and you're walking around, and your brain is popping.
Yeah.
But to Baxter's credit, and I think this was probably at that time one of the only pre-registration programs that did this, they did a rotation.
Wow.
So for the 12 months that you were at Baxter, they rotated you through each of the departments.
Yep.
So you got a flavour of what industry pharmacy is really about. It's not just a one department. It's actually lots of different departments that make up the pharmaceutical industry. And that's very, very powerful for a 20-year-old, thinks they know stuff, but doesn't really know stuff. And you're getting to experience things live. You're given some little projects here and there. Equally, you're meant to present some of those projects to some of the senior people in the organisation. So again,
Wow.
making you jump out of your comfort zone. So that was an amazing experience for me.
Wow. And that's obviously where you had your first taste of regulatory affairs, which is where you've then gone on to spend the majority of your career since then, haven't you? What is it that stood out to you about regulatory? What have you loved about regulatory?
So for me, regulatory it's fitting all of that information together from non-clinical, from clinical, from manufacturing and telling a story. So you are the glue for everything to get a product approved. And then you're the ones who are working to do that negotiation at the end as well with the health authorities. So for me, it's kind of like the dream job in the industry
Yeah.
because you're getting to tap into every department, bring it together, and you get to see a final result out of it. I mean, what's more powerful and interesting than being able to do that? And I did a presentation really, really early on in my career. So I went back to the university that I studied at the School of Pharmacy to present to some of the students about what they could do. And I was working at MHRA at that time, and I used a picture of a jigsaw, and I was like, regulatory affairs is that last piece of the pharmaceutical jigsaw puzzle, and that to me today still stands true.
Yeah.
And that's why I like it and have enjoyed my career in reg affairs, because, you know, nearly 27 years on, I'm still very much enjoying it, and it's evolving constantly too, so I'm learning daily.
So much. Yeah, I can understand that. You touched on the MHRA then as well. Obviously, the beginning of your career, you worked with a couple of different businesses after Baxter, didn't you? And then you joined and worked for the MHRA, I believe. Tell us about that.
I did. So, you know, I'm sitting, again, this is my curiosity again, Katy. So I'm sitting in Baxter going, I really like regulatory. How do I get a job in regulatory? Okay, who do I ask? You know what? I'm going to ask the MHRA. Oh, it's called the MCA at the time. So I wrote a letter to the head of the MCA at the time. I was like, hey, I'd really like a job in regulatory affairs. Can you give me any careers advice? And he did. He wrote me a letter back.
Wow.
Really nice handwritten letter with advice on, you know, what I should look to do. It's not an immediate straight out of university kind of role. You need to gain experience. He also recommended getting a dual qualification, which I went on to do as well. So again, it was seeking out advice, not too dissimilar to what I did in my A-levels, then going to my mentor at uni, and I could see these patterns as well.
Yeah.
Certain people you need to network with, ask people questions, and you can get some really good information from it just to push you forward and give you ideas.
Yeah.
And so that then cemented, yes, this is what I want to do. I went on then to not get a job in regulatory because I needed to find some experience first. So I went to Pfizer originally. And worked there in an aseptic suite, so manufacturing for clinical studies. And then shortly after I left Pfizer, I moved to a generics company. And in parallel, I went on to get my master's degree in law. So I was doing a little bit of locuming in the evening to pay for the master's degree or the weekends, and then working in regulatory affairs. And then eventually I was able to secure a position at the MHRA, and, you know, learn a little bit more about what a UK regulator does.
Yeah, and I was going to dig into that in a little bit more detail with you as well, because actually when you work for a regulator, it's really different to working in the industry where you're guided by the regulators. What was your experience like working in the MHRA? Tell us more about it.
You know, it was brilliant because, you know, when you're young in regulatory and you think about these regulators, you're like, oh my God, they're gods, and you can't do this and you can't do that. And then when you're walking in, and it was at Market Towers at the time, so down near Vauxhall Bridge, you're walking in, you're seeing people in the lift, you're listening to them, you know, talking about their weekends, you're like going, no, they're just normal people.
Yeah.
Right? So you realize that these are human beings. But equally, they also at the agency offered some great opportunities to understand how they were writing regulation and how they were writing guidances, what they're looking for when somebody's sending a dossier. What are the key things that you need to look out for, and which regulations do you need to pull out? Now, this was all in a time where computers were nowhere near as powerful, and, you know, we certainly didn't have the technology like we have today. So a lot of the times you would receive dossiers in paper format, and they'd be sitting in big cardboard boxes.
Yeah.
Around the offices, so a little bit more manual, but equally, I think the fundamental principles are the same. There's a regulation, you've got to make sure it meets the regulation, what to look for, and so when you're reading a paper dossier versus today, where you can quickly search a term in a dossier and it spits out everything nicely highlighted. In those days you couldn't, right?
Yeah.
So you would have little post-it notes and things like that. So it made you more efficient to really focus on the important facts that were coming out. That has been useful for me moving out of the regulator environment into writing for the regulator, because I have the mindset now, what is the reviewer seeing? What are they looking for
Yeah.
here? Make it easy for the reviewer, don't make it harder for the reviewer.
Yeah, and that's definitely
Yeah,
something that you've learnt from working on the other side of the fence, haven't you? It's something you
correct.
wouldn't have
Yeah,
known unless you'd had spent some time there. How long were you with the MHRA for?
just a couple of years.
Couple of
Yeah,
years.
just not too long. Because then I got married, and your first year of marriage, you don't want to really be too far away from your husband,
Yeah.
especially otherwise it could end up in divorce very, very quickly.
Yeah.
So yeah, so there was a long commute each day because I lived out in Canterbury and then
Ah,
commuted
yeah,
to London. And again, I don't think the trains were those fast trains like they are today.
true. Very true. So you made the move back into industry then?
Then I made the move back into actually Pfizer, which was interesting, and then stayed at Pfizer quite a while, and then an opportunity came to actually leave the UK, and we moved out here to Switzerland to join a company, a mid-sized company. So what was interesting about that is you've got this foundation from Big Pharma, you've got foundations from the UK regulators, and then you move into a completely different culture, very international environment, mid-sized company, and a new country to throw into this. So all of the admin that goes along. And we had a young family at the time. My children were 4 and 1.
Oh, bless you.
So,
Yeah.
yeah, 2 young girls to tag along, and a husband who was a little bit reluctant, I would say, to move to Switzerland. But a few little bribes on the benefits of sporting here in the outdoor lifestyle kind of managed to win him
Yeah,
over a
and
little
it's
bit.
clearly worked because you're still there today, aren't you? So it's
We are,
definitely
we are, and and the lifestyle here is wonderful, so we can't complain about that.
wonderful. Yeah, and it's a really big move to make, I think, when you think about relocation, let
Yeah,
alone career moves. If you throw relocation, you're in a completely new country. As you said, it was much more of an international environment as
yeah.
well. So for you, obviously your partner and your children to be able to move, it's quite a big thing to do. Were you excited by the opportunity to go to Switzerland?
Very. So, when I was at uni, I did one of those Erasmus schemes.
Ah, okay. Yeah.
So, actually, I was in Sicily for the Erasmus scheme, but we came to France for a holiday from Erasmus, which sounds really, really bizarre now when you say it back, but that's what happened. And we popped into Geneva for a long weekend or something, and I loved it. And I was like, yeah, I'm going to live here one day. And that was it. I'm going to live in Switzerland and I'm going to make that plan. And it never happened for a long time. And then I got married. We started having kids. I'm like, okay, that's a dream.
Yeah.
But then a phone call came from a recruiter. I wasn't expecting it. And, it was like, okay, I'm curious. You piqued my interest.
Yeah.
Let's have a discussion. And then one thing led to another. And I got very excited about an opportunity. And it seemed to work well for the family as well.
Absolutely, absolutely. And going into a mid-sized business,
Mhm.
obviously very different to the well-established brand that was
Yeah.
Pfizer. How did you find that period of adapting to something where your role is working within a much smaller organization?
I think at the time I didn't appreciate the amount of structure an organization like Pfizer has with the processes, the governance committees and things like that, how decisions are made. I think when you go into a mid-sized company, a lot of that structure exists, but in a different kind of way. Equally, you're exposed to more decision making. But I think if I look back on that time, I'd moved from a mid-level position to a more senior position. So the expectation was you would make more decisions too, right? And you would be accountable and responsible. But nobody taught you how to do that. And I think in a Pfizer environment, you have a very big safety net to help you get there. In a mid-sized company, you don't have that safety net, so you kind of have to make a lot of mistakes.
Yeah.
And you do make them, and it's painful, but you learn from them and you learn from them pretty damn quickly as well.
It's a great learning curve, though, isn't it? It really pushes you out of your comfort
Yeah.
zone. And obviously, for you at that point, going into a more senior position, did that come with leadership responsibilities as well?
It did. It was the first time I got a team of direct reports. So,
Wow.
you know, in the Pfizer world, it was more matrix. So, yeah, you were working with people, you were in projects, it was matrix line management. But this was where I had people directly I was responsible for. So, this was where my role changed again, and I had to adapt and develop new skills, because it's one thing leading projects in a matrix, it's very project
Yeah.
focused. To lead people, you've got to change your way of doing things, and that's a constant evolution, I have to say. Even now, many years on, I'm constantly learning every day on that score. But equally, you know, with my children too, you know, they teach me a tremendous amount, and it's a different kind of leadership. And sometimes I think they're leading me versus me leading them, but it is what it is.
Maybe now they're a lot older as well, definitely.
I think even when they were younger, my younger daughter used to be. We'd have arguments, and I'd be like, "Man, you're right. Oh my god, I don't know how to respond to that, right?" So you would learn, and you would find different ways around it.
Yeah, absolutely. And obviously that set you off on a people leadership journey as well, because your career since then has really taken off. You've obviously started to manage multiple departments as well, even up to present day now, where you don't just lead the regulatory team, you've got other teams as well reporting into you. So talk us through how you were able to transition your style, your leadership style, as you started to grow and take care of more people.
So this is again down to curiosity, right? It's not for everybody. And where I've been able to really expand my skill set was in my next journey in Switzerland, which has been my longest journey, or my longest stay in any organisation. So I joined a startup company called Covis Pharma. It was only 4 people at the very beginning. It went up to around 300 employees at its peak.
Wow.
Um, and so you learn a lot from this startup environment. You've got to pretty much wear about 20 different hats.
Yeah.
So you go, okay, but I can do that. I need to learn a bit more about things, especially the technical elements. But yeah, I can get on and do it. You learn to be efficient,
Yeah.
because you can't wear 20 hats and do 20 people's jobs in 40 hours a week. And so I think that opened my eyes, and also opened up some opportunities for me to raise my hand and go, I'll do that. Let me try. I might fail, but let me try. And I had a very nice manager who would allow me to do that as well. And would give direction. Yeah, maybe, yeah, this isn't the right thing. You haven't quite understood it, but you know what? Okay, fine. I'm okay with that too.
Yeah. Yeah, totally. It's a really big learning curve, isn't it? When you start to put yourself in situations that you're not so skilled in, but you really want to give it a go, and having a good manager that empowers you to do that, I think is really, really important. And obviously now for you, Aziza, you had a really good period of time with Covis, didn't you? You obviously
Mhm.
progressed very well within Covis to be part of their executive leadership team. Talk us through the present day. What are you doing now in the industry?
Okay, so now I am working for Recordati, which is a rare disease organisation. It's a much larger organisation in totality. It's a organisation made up of 2 main business units, specialty and rare diseases. So I follow the rare disease path. And so that is really bringing some innovative medicines in oncology, endocrinology, and metabolism to some really sick patients. And when you hear these patients speaking, you're watching them, you're listening to their physicians, and you're going, wow, we're helping these people. That's super powerful. So yeah, I'm working with the R&D groups to bring some more products to market, taking them through the regulatory journey, but equally not just with FDA and EMA, but across the globe. So we're pretty much in all 4 corners, well, not corners, but many areas of the globe.
Oh, fantastic. That's great to hear how you've been able to develop, and clearly the rare disease area is something that you're really enjoying and feel so passionately about, which is great. Obviously, with your experience in the last couple of career moves you've made, Aziza, you've been part of the executive leadership
Mhm.
team. Would love to hear your insights as to how you've been able to navigate that environment, typically maybe being the only woman on the executive leadership team, or maybe the only woman on a board, as an example. How have you navigated those situations?
So that was a bit hard at the beginning, I have to say, being the only female in the room. And there was one point where we'd gone out to dinner, and that was the realization I was the only female in the room, because I needed to go to the bathroom, and everybody stood up when I stood up, and I'm like, great, now everybody knows I need to pee. How embarrassing is this? And then you're like, they don't do it to the men in the room. And it was like, that is so strange and weird, but I'm the only female here. I'm the only skirt here.
Yeah.
So I've got to try and make that a difference, right? So I've got to speak up. I can't be having this imposter syndrome. I am meant to be here, and just changing the mindset a little bit,
Yeah.
but speaking up when it was needed to speak up, not just talking for the sake of it, because I think men can do that brilliantly, right?
Yeah.
You know, they'll talk and talk and talk and talk, and then there's no action. So that's something I still have to work on. And remembering, you are good, you are meant to be here, and leaving your ego at the door as well,
Yeah.
because leave it there, because it's no place in this room. You've got a job to do, and your job is not just for yourself, it's for every other female on this planet, because they need to be seen and pushed through.
Yeah. And you touched on imposter syndrome there as well. Is that something you've
Right.
struggled with a few points?
Yeah, I have, and I know later on we may talk about some tools that I use, but I listen to a lot of podcasts. I do a lot of meditation now, and I actually did hire a business coach
Oh,
probably around 12 years ago now, to help me
wow.
just figure out, what do I need to do here now. And I did that all on my personal expense. I didn't ask the company to help me with that, because it's something for me. What that gave me is some amazing insights into who Aziza Johnson is. How do I tick and how do I think? And I learned a lot about myself.
Wow.
And that's played out not just professionally, but personally, because I think in life, everything intertwines, right?
Yeah.
So you can't take off one coat and go, okay, now it's, Aziza at home, and
Yeah.
now it's Aziza in the office. It doesn't work that way. And you kind of I learned really what my true core values are in life,
Yeah.
not just in the workplace, and how I can be okay with certain things and not okay with other things when I need to speak up. It took a lot. We did a lot of hypnotherapy and things like that. And it was very, very powerful. And if people have the means, desire, I would strongly recommend to do that kind of thing, because you learn so much about yourself. It can only just help you
Yeah.
in the future.
I think so. I think it's a journey for you personally, isn't it? It's not just focused around your career and what you
Correct.
do professionally. It's about your personal journey. I was going to ask actually, like, what advice you'd give for maybe women who are in a situation. And I love the fact you've spoken so openly about meditation, hypnotherapy, but the business coach as well. You decided to seek that on your own, and it's been something that's been very influential for you.
It has, there was a little time, so we were about to go on holiday. My job was very, very stressful at the time, and I had really bad heart palpitations. I'm like, I'm going to have a heart attack any minute. Somebody passed me the aspirin. It was at that level. So I went to the doctor straight away, and he was like, no, 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 it's anxiety, blah, blah, blah. And I was like, okay, this is not healthy. This is not normal. I need some help.
Yeah.
But I don't need medical help. I need somebody to help me
Yes. Yeah,
inside
yeah.
take this to take this down. So that's when I really sought out some help, and that was good. It's been nothing but brilliant for me. It's made me understand a lot
Yeah.
about my own persona, about how other people have different filters and things like that. So that all of it together has just been. It's just been the right thing, the right time. Things have the right time and place.
Yes, they
I was
do.
supposed to have those palpitations so I could trigger an action, and
Yeah.
da da da
And
da.
it's taught you. Yeah, I completely agree. You touched a little bit on being Aziza at home and being Aziza at work. over the years, have you learned any strategies as to how you balance all of this time and effort you put into your work versus what you do with your personal life?
So meditation has been, I do that every day.
Wow.
So whether it's first thing in the morning now or in the evening, it's a really good way just to calm it down, calm your heart rate down. And it takes time because my brain is constantly racing. I'm not a kind of person who sits still. So I'm up to, I think, 12 minutes of meditation. So it's not a lot,
Yeah.
right? But 12 minutes of just sitting quietly and keeping your brain quiet is quite a lot for Aziza, I would have to say, compared to where I was a few years ago. So I definitely do that. I listen to a lot of podcasts now when I'm either driving to the office, going for walks, do a lot more sports, so getting myself out there. And what I'm focusing now on doing is in my calendar, I block out lunchtime because it's unbelievable how many people will book you in because they see that as free
Yep.
and they'll book a meeting in and you're like, nah, I need to eat. So I'm starting to learn to put boundaries in place, but it's taken a long time.
Yeah.
So I wish I'd done it a lot sooner when my girls were a little bit younger.
Yep.
Now they're a bit older. This is when I've started to put boundaries in place, and I should have really done it a bit sooner than I have done because it's so nobody minds you putting boundaries in place.
No.
And it's fine, and the work still gets done.
Very true, very true. And I think that's definitely part and parcel of something we see in the life sciences industry as a whole. Our industry moves so quickly, and you also feel a lot of pressure sometimes as well, for particularly for you when you're working in such an influential position within the business. I can completely understand where the anxiety starts to creep in and the pressure that you can feel, but it's really important to set yourself the boundaries to be productive in the time that you have. So I love the fact that you've blocked out lunch. I think that's a really tangible, small difference you can make in your schedule that helps you to kind of balance your time. Have you found exercise has also been very helpful for you?
It has. I mean, I try to go swimming frequently and I really, really enjoy it. I'm going to be hitting a big birthday milestone very, very soon. So I'm also trying to push myself out of my comfort zone
Good for you.
and starting to take up different challenges and focus on that. But, some other tips I've done is with setting the boundaries, letting people know what your boundaries are.
Yep.
Setting them is one thing, communicating them. So, my manager knows that if it's a really urgent thing, I'm not picking up my emails at weekend, forget it. Friday evening, that's it, they're off. If it's desperately urgent, send me a WhatsApp text.
Yep.
And I'll pick that up. So there's other mechanisms to still be available, but not you constantly checking your emails. Oh my God, is something coming in? Is it not coming in? And then the other things is also leading by example. Yeah, okay, maybe you do work on a Sunday just because whatever. Don't hit the send on the email, hit delay release on it, because then you're teaching your team not to have to respond and be available at the weekend. The only time it's ever is when it's really urgent, like somebody's died. But in regulatory affairs, that's pretty slim, right? It
Yep.
doesn't happen very often.
Yeah.
Pharmacovigilance a little bit different, and you do have some 24-hour safety things occasionally, but in regulatory, not so
Yeah.
much.
I love that. In terms of your advice, Aziza, whilst we're on the topic, women who are trying to access board seats is a really hot topic of discussion, particularly through 2024. Having been on this journey yourself, what advice would you give to women who are actively seeking their journey onto a board?
That's a great question. And I would say women need to figure out what makes them special. Why should they be on that board? What can they bring to that board? But equally, do your homework. So, being a board member comes with a lot of responsibility. Know what that responsibility is, know what your role is, know what you're undertaking. There are a lot of courses now out that give you advice on what it is to be a board, whether it's a startup board, an NGO board, a big board. And then here in Switzerland, there's a really good group. I don't know whether I can say this, if it's considered advertising or not, but there's a group called the Board Owl.
Okay. Yep.
and they do networking events, but equally they run courses on how to write a board resume. So we've got our professional resumes, but that's not a board resume. There's different things. They have networking events. They can also match you to different board opportunities that they know are coming up. So I think find your unique selling point, network the hell out of it as well. Find all these courses, and it doesn't just have to be in your industry. You may have a certain skill that is beneficial to another industry that you never would have thought about. And so, raise your hand and go and find people and speak to them.
Yeah, absolutely. I think that's brilliant advice. I think you have to have a combination, don't you, of networking and outreach, but also maybe reflecting on you and what areas you have that make you very good at what you do and really where you can excel too. So I think that's really brilliant advice. I think there's a real desire for a lot of women to be able to get into the board seats. Historically, it's obviously been very difficult. So congratulations to you who's been able
Thank you.
to break through. I really hope that this is a great role model for others who are listening, who aspire to be on a board. Any final advice from you, Aziza, for women in our industry?
Just keep it real and be authentic, because women are amazing, right? And they bring so much to the table. And what we try to do sometimes is mimic the male archetype. But actually, what we need is diversity, because with that diversity, we will see bigger pictures, we will see different avenues, and that's what we need a lot more. And don't be shy, right? Speak up, network. It's something that I'm always telling my children to do, but they don't want to do life sciences. Sadly, they want to go in other
Oh
directions, but
no.
that's fine too. They're going to do amazing things, and I'm sure they'll be very successful.
Yeah. Oh, how wonderful. Well, thank you, Aziza, for sharing your career story. This has been really great to kind of understand how you've progressed through
Mhm.
your career and obviously into leadership positions. And thank you for sharing all this advice as well. I know it was something we were both keen to cover, was to
Yeah.
share as much advice as we can do. So thank you for dedicating your time to recording with us here today at Lift Up. We really appreciate you being a part of our overall community too. And I'm sure for any of our listeners, Aziza would be more than happy to connect with you. I know she's an avid user of LinkedIn too, and great at networking, of course, as well. So thank you so much, Aziza, for the opportunity to speak with you.
Thank you very much, Katy, for inviting me to, share my story and hopefully inspire, if not one, but a few more women and even men. There are some men out there who want to work in regulatory affairs. Maybe I can inspire them too, but certainly trying to fly the flag for women everywhere.
Absolutely. Well, thank you again for your time, Aziza. It's been a real pleasure to speak with you.